Hello, well I'm going to be making some plus size leather belts in this film and actually covering a lot of different leather techniques in the process. So you'll see all the selecting the leather, cutting it out and shaving edges, rounding edges, saddle creasings, wet forming, etc, and some skiving. Anyway, I'll get going in a minute. Just want to say the film is sponsored by Sedgwick's leather and they make a lovely quality English bridle leather, and I have used it actually in other films where I've done the nice hand stitched decorated belts and things like that. It is lovely stuff and I'm very proud to be associated with Sedgwick's. I'll say a bit more in the film as we're working through about the leather and why I like it so much, but actually I think it will become very apparent as you see me use it. It's lovely firm temper, lovely close grain, beautiful surface finish. They really do have expert curriers there and you'll see why I like it so much. I'll also pop some links down below in case you want to get hold of some, and well let's get going because I'll start cutting the belts out. Well, here's the lovely bridle back that I'll be using. It's covered at the moment in tannery wax and all rolled up, but I'll unroll it, we'll get cutting. The bridle back is obviously very long. This is over 90 inches long, so it's ideal for what I want to do here. And of course it would have been used as well as for things like belting, things like lunge lines for horses, and I've got a very nice one actually in the ceiling of my workshop, which I'll just show you. Well, this is an early one and it's very nicely, as you can see, very nicely decorated. But you'd need a bridle back to make this. It's long. It goes right the way down there. So I'll get this laid out on my bench and I'll get a nice straight edge and start getting cutting. Going to do 1.25 inch belts at the moment, so start with those. As you can see, the bridle back, it's a lovely long bit of leather. What I specifically want to just show you though with this is there's a number on here, and Sedgwick's, they actually number every bit of hide because they have complete traceability, and what that means is they know which cow basically the leather's come from, and they only choose cows of a certain age, so they've had a good life. And of course, as always, it's a byproduct of the food industry. So I've got my nice straight edge I've cut using a straight edge guide, and I'm now going to use my strap cutter to cut off the first length of belting. And this makes a very effective, nice, correct width cut. This is weird, it is just so long. Yeah, roll it up. I need a longer bench. In fact, I need a bigger workshop really. But I manage. Down we go. This is lovely. There you have it. So one blank, I'll cut some more. I'm going to next of all do the saddler's crease lines, nice lines down the length, and I've got my crease heater, my old one actually I picked up. If you follow my Instagram you'll see I got this at Bodger's Ball and I've been doing some repairs, so it's all back in action and I'm going to use that. I'm just going to heat up my crease tool. So I'm burning meths in this. It gives a nice sort of non-sooty flame, and I have a template I use just to make sure I've got my crease tool set, because I vary it depending whether it's 1.5 inch belt, 1.25 inch belt, etc. So I'll just let that warm up a bit. If you're very observant, you'll notice that the tool is at a very slight angle, and what I'm really trying to do there is heat up the blade, which is going to make the mark down the leather. I don't particularly want to heat up my guide blade, it doesn't matter if I do. We're nice and warm, and I'm just going down the edge of this belt, getting a lovely saddler's crease line. So I'm using an old Dixon's screw crease tool. So one of the blades guides it and the other one does the nice saddler's crease line. And this Sedgwick's leather is taking a very nice crease. It's a lovely smooth firm leather, so as you go down it takes a good clear crease line. Beautiful. Being obviously a long belt, it takes quite a few more passes. I think I've got enough heat. They're quite good, these old tools, because they're often sort of bulked up a bit more and they've got a nice sort of a bit of head, so the heat holds pretty well really, all in all. Able to get a fair bit of pressure holding the crease tool as I am sort of in an upright type position. Very slight angle to keep it on track, so I keep the guide right, don't want it slipping off, marking everything. I'll give it another little warm up. It won't need much warming now. Get the other side done. So I'll try and show you on camera. I think that's, yeah, just taking the focus. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting on the nice saddler's crease line. What I'll be doing after that is I'll be shaving a little bit of leather off the corner each side, back and front, so it's nice and rounded, and it just makes for a more comfortable belt. Now I'm doing the saddler's crease lines first because you have got a squared off edge at the moment, so the crease tool doesn't slide off. But it's important to do things in the right order, otherwise you'll find that you'll have a bit of difficulty. Well, I always have a sort of bit of scrap leather on the side just to make sure that I'm okay temperature wise, so I've just tested another little bit there. We're all good for another run. So I'll take it down this side. Right, first one done. A few more to go. Let that warm up again. I like to skive behind the buckle on my belts. Now this is a thing that I know quite a few people don't bother doing. The reason I like to skive behind the buckle is it actually thins off the leather and therefore makes the belt look slimmer. It makes it a nice sort of fit on the person. It's a little detail. I think it's quite an important one. And yeah, if you look at nice old bridal work, you'll see it's always skived. So to do that, I have my very sharp tool here, which will take a nice slice off the leather. The blade on this is, well, I strop it every now and again. In fact, I usually strop it just before I start using it, keep it lovely and sharp. But you'll get a good skive with one of these. I always, just sort of at a point of safety, I'm pretty careful. I always keep the blade covered because it is sharp, and I also, when I'm using it, I have the whole unit firmly G-clamped to my bench. I mean, in an ideal world I'd have this screwed down on the bench, but I just don't have the space, so that's why it's not. Just prior to use, I usually just remove the safety guard upward and just give the blade a few little rubs with my leather strop. Just keeps that edge nice and sharp. So the leather strop, it's just a wooden paddle with some leather and some stropping compound on it. And it doesn't need more than a few strokes, but it just keeps that edge nicely preserved. So I'll just take like the wax layer off almost. So that's a very thin skive off. And then if you want to do this sort of step method, go along, take a bit more off, and then once again a bit further along. And you end up with quite a nice tapered skive. The reason I always take the wax layer off is so that when I come to bend over for the buckle, I can soak this and it will bend so much more easily. It won't fracture the leather or do anything nasty, so that's something I always do. This will obviously all get dyed and polished, so the fact that it's sort of light skin colour doesn't matter at all at the moment. That will get done, but do that for each belt and it just makes them look so much more professional. If you want to get the tapered skive all in one action, you've got to move this handle forward as you pull the lever that way. So I'll just show you what I mean. I just start this off with a gentle skive, and then I move the handle forward very, very slowly. Doink, like that. And you'll get a tapered bit of leather coming off, and you're left with a nice taper here. So that can get soaked, bent over. Sometimes they end up sort of trimming them and then re-skiving a step if it's not perfectly nice, but that's fine. That's all good gradual taper. After one's done a few sort of 100 of these, you get quite good at it, so it does help. Subject to sponsorship, very briefly, just to say I get quite a few requests for people wanting to sponsor films. When Sedgwick's asked me, I had previously been buying quite a bit of their leather, and I was delighted they asked me, actually, because it is such a lovely leather and I wanted to share that with you. Sedgwick's is a long established company, founded in 1900. It's got highly trained staff. It really does turn out consistently high quality leather. You really will not be disappointed. In the UK you can buy it from the likes of Abbey England and also Dandy Leather. And also it's worth keeping an eye on the Sedgwick's website as well, because they actually have sometimes smaller quantities they sell. They tend to be a bit more geared for trade with larger quantities, but keep an eye on the website because they sometimes do put up smaller quantities, and sometimes they have sales at Walsall. Internationally they've got agents pretty well all over the world, so USA, Canada, Australia, China, Sweden, Germany, Italy, to name a few. So you should hopefully be able to get your hands on some of the lovely Sedgwick leather. It is very nice and lovely and firm. Anyway, edge shaving next. We'll get on with that. I find it's best to edge shave up against a guide. So different people do all these sorts of processes differently, actually. So I mean, some people do a long groove and put the leather in a groove, but I quite like just going up to an edge. But it's fairly straightforward. You just need to make sure you keep your tools nice and sharp. I have put up films on how to sharpen these. But the idea is you take off a little whisper of leather to make it nice and round. I appreciate at the moment you may think, oh, that's exposing quite a lot of the sort of inner leather. It doesn't matter because you're going to polish that, you're going to dye it and polish it. So it will all blend in nicely and look rather good. So I shave around all edges. So that's the back as well. And then you get a nice rounded top. Now you could, if you wanted to, not do all of this process, and you could just sort of black felt tip your edges or use some sticky paint on your edges to cover them over. It just wouldn't look the same and it wouldn't do justice to this lovely quality material. So I prefer, as I say, to do it the traditional proper way. Actually just like the lunge rain that I showed you earlier on the ceiling of my workshop. Now I'll carry on. So I've got the belts now whereby saddler's crease line's all done, all the edges are rounded over and they're skived where the buckles are going. So what I'm going to do next, I've got one of my buckles, they're very nice quality solid brass cast in Walsall, very nice buckles these. Going to pop one of these in position and get my buckle placement. Now I do have a template that helps me with this, and all I have to do is line my template up on the belt and then hey presto, I mark it with a little scratch awl, and I know what I'm doing. That's the theory. So all I'm doing at this stage is I'm just looking at where I've skived. I want to have plain unwaxed leather on the back where I'm going to do the bend, because what I will be doing is soaking the leather so it bends over easily. And so I'm just going to mark where the slot goes. I don't want the leather getting too thin at the extreme end where it wraps around the back of the buckle. I want to keep it all strong, but have a gradual taper. So I just place this where I get the gradual taper, but equally the nice raw leather edge. Turn it over and mark it. So there you are. I've got my, may not show up on camera, I've got my slot for the buckle pin, and then some holes for the rivets, and then a curve off at the back to cut the leather when it folds over, so it'll fold over about there. So that's the buckle marking out, fairly straightforward. So I'm just going to cut the tongue hole. It's for the buckle pin. You can sort of see, it's funny how the human eye can detect when something's not quite where you want it. There we are. Hold it firm, and down we go. And one more bit of lengthening. There we have it. Again, just check if that's going to move okay. Yep. They are quite fat, these ones, so I'm actually using quite a big cutter on them. So I just take my maker's mark and I place it nicely in the centre, but far enough off the rivet. Make sure I've got it the right way up. And then lower my ram. This is a ratchet lever press. So I lower my ram into position and then pull on my handle. And you feel a little bit of give. It's lovely tough Sedgwick's leather. I don't want to press too hard though. There you are, a very nice crisp maker's mark. The curriers do a nice job on this stuff. So I'm just cutting the back part of the belt to length behind the buckle. So that rounds it off, and then I want some holes for the copper saddler's rivets. So I'm just using a punch to punch in the holes. I'm now just dyeing the edges of the belt, and I'm using a wool dauber with some leather dye. I find that applies it quite nicely. So I'm just going to work along the belt, giving it a good polish as I go along. And I'm using my slicker. I've popped the film up about using one of these. I think they're very good personally. You really can sort of manipulate the leather in all directions with it. You can get it compressed down at its edges and get a nice good finish. I'll let that soak in. I'll come back to it in a minute and give it another lot of dye. I'll keep working my way along. It's a hot day, so I have to work quite quickly on this one. When I've given it a couple of sort of polishes, a couple of coats, I then edge seal, and I have my own special formula for that. But it's something which gives a nice waterproof seal on the edge and keeps it nice. So I'm now giving this another coat of dye. You probably won't realise at the moment, you may think this is a black belt, it's actually dark Havana. Once the wax comes off, that will become very apparent. But it's actually dark Havana. Lovely colour, lovely deep, rich, like a cigar colour, dark cigar colour. It's very nice. The belts are stacking up. I'm just letting them dry now, ready for the next stage. Well, making the belt keepers, it's very similar to making the belts. You cut out your strips of leather, you skive them, get them nice and slim at the ends so they tuck under nice and flat, and around the edges, etc. Then I will dye them, stain them, polish them so they look nice, just like with a belt. And one little detail I do on these, and it's all about details, is I round the inner surface down. And the reason I round it down is so that then when you have the tongue of the belt going underneath the keeper, it slides under easily and rather nicely. Just fitting the keepers at the moment, and I pre-soak so that they bend nicely. So I just pre-soak the leather where I'm going to be basically making it bend around the belt. So I custom fit each keeper for each belt. Not that there's much variation, but I know like that it will be a very nice fit. And once they've soaked a little bit, I can bend them over and cut them. And I hole punch them. Mark the other holes and pop those in. So I double rivet them, then there's absolutely no chance they can come adrift or anything. And I will just take these down. They already have been skived. I just like to get them sort of thin enough that they lie fairly flat. But equally, obviously want them to be strong and last many, many years. So it's that little bit of compromise there. And then I rivet them together. And a final thing I do is there's a raw end where I've cut them, obviously. It would be unlikely to show because it's actually behind the belt tab, but I do just daub a bit of stain on there. Then there's absolutely no chance of it catching the light. It's just nice to have it looking as good as you can sort of get it. Again, it's a little tiny refinement, but the little tiny refinements, I know I keep saying this, they really do add up. What I then do is I put the keeper on the belt, back to back, so I don't damage the nice front outer surface. Manipulate it a bit. I don't block my keepers on wooden blocks. Sometimes I know some people block them on wooden blocks. I do them on the actual belt because my belts have curved edges. And so I feel if you get it blocked, you know, square to shape is what I mean by blocked, on the belt, you've got the nice curves of the belt edges there. So just the riveting of the buckles now, get those fixed on with lovely strong saddler's rivets. And I like using the copper hand hammered saddler's rivets because they're really strong. They don't rot either, so it's a very effective form of fixing. I'll show you how you do that. Just a very quick reflection. And as I'm sort of working on this sort of thing, I often sort of think about the craft and what I'm doing. People sometimes say to me, oh, don't you sort of get a bit bored of just doing belts? And obviously, as you know, I don't do just belts, I do other forms of leather work, but I really do like it. It's a chance to sort of get, I suppose it's getting your craft, you get great satisfaction from making something nice, from actually doing something. And it's very difficult to put into words why I like it, but it is sort of you can reflect on life and things as you're doing it. And I enjoy, I suppose, seeing little tiny details, getting things better. You know, I know now I can look at a belt sort of like 10 yards off. I immediately know whether it's nice or not and what it's like and all of that. And working on this lovely leather, it's nice. It's, you see what other people who've made that leather, what they've done and how they've made it nice, and you get to appreciate it as you work with it. It's the same thing with woodwork or with blacksmithing. If you've got a nice material to work with, it does make it very enjoyable, and you know, it's all the more better for it. So yeah, it's odd really, but I've got cobblers in my ancestry, so perhaps there's something there that's picked up. Anyway, I'll reflect that a bit more. Maybe if you want to comment below about your own craft, but I'll perhaps pop a film up sometime about why I like craft. Anyway, riveting, I think I said, let's get on with it. So to fix the buckles on, I need to be able to bend this leather over nicely, and I've been soaking it with water where it's going to bend. That just means it's more mouldable. It's one of the great things about leather, actually, you can wet mould it. And then I've been sort of manipulating this to make it all nice and snug fit, pressing it all down so it's all lovely. And I've got some Nice saddler's copper rivets I'm going to pop through here. I have tested these to destruction, as I have a habit of all my stuff, so I know how strong it is. And the saddler's copper rivets, one of them takes my weight, no problem. So these are lovely firm attachment that doesn't rot, and I really like them. I also think they look quite nice. So I'm using a rivet set tool now, which is as a hole to sort of sink the washer down. And then I trim off the excess. And I've got some like building site nippers for this. I have to watch the little copper bit as it flies off. And then I'm using a ball peen hammer. So it's got a rounded end for rounding off the rivet. So first of all I flatten it. And make sure it doesn't move. I'll trim the other side. I'm now going to just round them over. And I'm using the rounded end of the hammer, the ball peen of the hammer. And you will find if you polish your hammer nicely, you'll get far better results, to get a better finish. It takes time to polish, but it turns a cheap hammer. This isn't a cheap hammer, but I use this one on bigger rivets, and as you can probably see there just about on camera, I have highly polished it, and you just get a smoother, nicer looking rivet. So that polishing is worth doing. So I just test it with my finger to make sure there's no rough edges or anything. Okay, now pop the keeper on. So on goes the keeper, firmly tucked back and under. Bring the belt round, over it goes. And again, same procedure, hammer it down. Make sure that works. There you have it, all buckle that is not gonna shift. So that's the buckle all put on. I give the belt a final sort of wax off, get it all nice and cleaned up. Obviously with these ones, because they're plus size belts, I'm going to put the holes in at the end when the customer orders them. So I'm going to do them bespoke to the customer's exact measurement. So I won't be cutting this. I would normally put oval holes down. I like oval holes because they're stronger, and round holes and look better. An English point end, which I cut in with an old hand forged Dixon cutter, and then I polish the end. I round underneath the end so it goes underneath the keeper nicely, and you have a nice end on the belt. Well, I hope you enjoy seeing how I make the plus size belts, and I'm going to call this the Plus Heritage range. And Heritage because it's beautiful Sedgwick leather, and that company has a splendid heritage of producing really wonderful leathers, and it's a joy to work with. It really is. It takes the edge. It's got a wonderful surface, a lovely firm temper. It's great stuff. And yeah, nice cast in England buckle as well. Lovely solid bit of brass work there, really nicely finished and done. So Plus Heritage belts with lovely Sedgwick leather. I hope you enjoy seeing that. As I say, I will pop these on the website. I'm going to be obviously cutting them to order, so that will happen. Just put your order in and there'll be measuring instructions etc. on there. Anyway, I'd like to say thanks very much to Sedgwick's for sponsoring this film. It's been a joy working with their leather, and I hope you've enjoyed watching it. Okay then, bye bye.